Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome into the latest edition of the Hook 'em Hoops Pod. I'm Jason Conander, joined by Tommy Yarish and Zach Davis. This is not going to be a very fun episode. Usually, we like to bring the joy and the excitement of college basketball, but when you've won 2 of 10 games down the stretch, haven't won since early February, you're not trying to make the NCAA tournament, apparently. There's not much fun to talk about. Texas Longhorns have been losing a lot, and they're at risk of falling off the bubble.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much more I can add to that, boys. This has not been fun. It's been extremely painful, as a matter of fact. Um, I mean, simply put, boys, this team just isn't playing good basketball. You felt like they were playing for their season against Kentucky, and they got that win, and you kind of wonder just what happens after that. Is it something where they thought they were locks for the tournament, and they think, okay, we can cruise the rest of the way? I don't know. I don't want to, put that label on them or say that they're doing that, but you lose to a team that had not won a single conference game by 15 points, and then you go and lose to Arkansas in a game where Trey Johnson basically scores every basket, and you still lose by 5 in overtime, and then you lose to Georgia by just about 20 at home. I mean, it's spiraling out of control almost. And I know we were talking before the show that they're still alive, but it's very bleak, gentlemen. It's very bleak, and I think they're going to need some help.
The score, really quick before you go, Zach, the score from that Georgia game, by the way, does not do it justice. They lost by 16.
No,
They were down by 30 in the second half. Like
yeah,
that game, they never had a chance to win. They
they
looked
got their asses
horrible.
kicked. They got
They,
their
they yeah, they
asses
got their
kicked.
asses kicked against a team that was literally right behind them on the bubble. Texas was the last team in for Joe Lunardi going into the day. Georgia was the first team out, and Texas got their asses kicked by Georgia. Georgia looked like they were a 5 seed or even better. Texas looked like they were at the bottom of the SEC.
I think this team, I feel like we've been hindering on the reality that this team has the guys to do it. And we haven't really focused on how they're going to mesh together. We've always kind of denied like the fact that they're not playing together and that they're always going to fit in. At least I have, because on paper this team is a top 20 team in the country. That's where they were ranked in the AP before the season started. And the reality is this team just can't play basketball together. Trey Johnson, Jordan Pope, Tremont Mark, those are all shooting guards. They Trey Johnson is arguably the only guy on this team that can get to the basket at will. So you play these SEC teams with great coaching, and I just read an article about how UF and Auburn switch so well, and that's why they're so successful. And Texas is just a catastrophe. To score on Texas, it's not very hard. Get Caden Chedrick up top. That's all it takes.
Or out
And
of the
then you'll
game.
blow by and you'll blow by and score. And I'm done with this reality that this team has the right guys and that they're going to score. They're going to get a lot of points. Jordan Pope hasn't scored over 12 points since the OU game, the first SEC game of the year. He touched 11 and 10 twice in the past 14 games, and everything else has been low. Tremont Marks had a couple of good games in the middle of February, but this team hasn't won a basketball game since February 12th. Tommy, Jason, you watching. February 12th. We've been waiting a month, almost a month minus 9 days to watch this team win basketball games again, and we haven't seen it at all. I talk fast when I get passionate, and that's just because I'm passionate about the fact that it's not going my way, and I'm not used to that. I grew up a Duke fan. It usually goes my way, guys.
Okay.
Uh,
That was
this is quite a baptism for you, pal.
that was a great essay of sorts about the struggles of Texas basketball the past couple of weeks. It's been terrible. I mean, we talked on this show a couple of weeks ago. This was supposed to be the easy part of their league schedule. Like after that Alabama game, we were like, phew, thank God. They've got the Kentucky game that they'll probably win, and they did because Kentucky didn't have a point guard. And they lost to South Carolina. That game wasn't close. They lost to Arkansas in overtime. And then they lose to Georgia in a game where they didn't even show up. They're not playing like they want to play in the NCAA tournament. And Zach, you hit the nail on the head. It's a bunch of shooting guards. They don't have a point guard. As much as I love Julian Larry's game at Indiana State, he's proven this year he's just not a high major player. And it's frustrating when that's your best option at point guard is a true point guard. This team needs Kendall Weaver back so bad. And like there seems to be some sort of like belief that he's just not playing or that Rodney Terry's not playing. Like, no, he's hurt. Texas just doesn't update these guys' statuses very often unless they have to. Kendall Weaver, if he was able to be on the court, he'd be on the court every game. They need his defense. They need his intensity. They need his hustle, the little things that he does. It's everything that this team is missing right now. To say that their season is on the line tonight against Mississippi State is an understatement. They have to win this game to remain on the bubble. It's not even going to get them in the tournament. They've played themselves out of that position. I don't know what the fix is to this. I really don't. It doesn't seem like there's a fix to this on this current roster. What you have to do is you have to play through your best players now. Arthur Kaluma has to stay on the court. Trey Johnson needs to keep doing what he's doing. He's playing winning basketball. He's hitting shots. A lot is falling on the shoulders of the freshmen. So please, some of these other guys who are getting paid big dollars to play for this Texas basketball team need to step up in big road games. That's what you come to the SEC to play in. This Mississippi State game is going to define the season if these last 2 weeks haven't already defined the season.
Well, it's a good thing they're going on the road to Starkville, fellas. Isn't that a well-known, easy environment to play in? You're going to have cowbells ringing in your ears for the next 6 days. I mean, it's just look. When we started this year, we knew that this was going to be a team that was surrounded around Trey Johnson. Well, the thing when you build around a team is it can't just be that one player. You've got to have guys that you actually build around them. And we thought we had that in Tremont Mark. I don't think he's been what we expected this year. Granted, injuries played a part in that, but nonetheless, he hasn't been the kind of Robin to his Batman that some thought we would see. Zach makes a good point about Jordan Pope being, not necessarily a true point guard, and Julian Larry. I think you're right, Jason. It just might be one of those guys who was good as a role player at the high major level, but he's not a contributor at the high major level. Arthur Kaluma has been an absolute roller coaster, and I think injuries played a part in that too. But you can't put this season on injuries. They're just not playing good basketball. They're really not. And then Caden Shedrick's just been awful. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. He's not playing good on the defensive side of the ball, which was his calling card before. He can't get you much offensively. He's not all that good at boxing out, being physical down low, and getting rebounds. And so this team just isn't coherent. They can't build around Trey Johnson because Trey Johnson is their only commodity as up to this point. And it's looking very bleak, honestly. It's looking very bleak. And I don't know what this means for the future, whether this means changes on personnel, on front office, on whatever you want to say.
Everything.
Yeah, everything. I hate talking about that stuff because I understand these are, real people with real lives who go through things that, it's tough when you're in this position, and nobody ever wants to be in this position. But just looking at the pure basketball standpoint, it's not been up to standard, and that's very easy to see. And I know that we talked at the start of the year about how good this team looked on paper, but maybe we just didn't do a good enough job of thinking how pieces could mesh together. And I don't think the staff, frankly, has either with how things have played out.
2 facts for you, just building off you, Tommy, that I don't think Texas fans are ready to hear. Fact number 1. Ronnie Terry coached a team to an Elite Eight. That's fact number 1. Fact number 2, Ronnie Terry, in his second year, coached a team to a round of 32 game where they lost in the last possession to a number 2 ranked Tennessee. I don't think it's hard for me to put into coaching perspective. I don't want to say anything till after the season, but I will say that Texas fans are forgetting, just from a Chris Del Conte, how he feels about the situation standpoint, that there were 2 excellent years here on the 40 acres under Rodney Terry. That's a fact. And I don't think the fans of Texas basketball are ready to hear that. And I'm not arguing whether he should be hired or whether he should be fired, he should be kept or he should be fired. But what I do know are the facts. And I don't think people are ready to admit that that will play a factor in the offseason. Because, yeah, Jason, you go ahead.
I mean, it will, but it just doesn't matter right now. I mean, it's March 3rd and Texas, March 4th. I mean, Texas needs to win. It doesn't matter what his status was a year ago. It doesn't matter what his status is going to be in 3 weeks. I mean, Rodney Terry has coached before with his job on the line. He's entered the NCAA tournament before with his job publicly on the line and made an Elite Eight. I mean, this isn't something that's new to him, new to Texas fans, new to this program. They've won despite it. They're just not doing it this year. And the team looks checked out. Like that team 2 years ago, they all played for each other and they played for RT. They loved RT. You just don't see that with this team this year. Like Trey Johnson at times looks like the only guy who even wants to be on the court. And that's really unfortunate because he's a freshman. We know how much he loves basketball, but he needs to be uplifted by the guys around him. It shouldn't be the other way around. And that's what it's been this year. And it's just unacceptable for Texas. And that's part of why they're in this position right now, is because they haven't had the guys around Trey Johnson to play winning basketball at all. Like, you don't even need these guys to give you 15 and 10. You just need them to play winning basketball, fill in the gaps that Trey can't fill. And that's not happening. And I can't see it happening tonight in Starkville, which is really worrying because we thought this would be, the easy part of Texas's schedule. We didn't think this game would be easy. We know Chris Jans is doing a great job in Mississippi State. But Tommy said it earlier, it's looking bleak. And tonight's game, we're going to find out, what this Texas basketball season is going to be remembered for. If they come out and they lose by 30, Rodney Terry's job's going to be gone. They're not going to make the NCAA tournament because they're not going to win the SEC tournament. Like, this isn't a tournament that you can run the table and win. Like, no, like their opportunities right now to make the NCAA tournament are this week. You have to beat Mississippi State on the road. That's quad 1A game. Beat Oklahoma at home. Knock them off the bubble. I don't even know why they're on 4-12 in SEC play. That's what Texas needs to do. And then you worry about the SEC tournament when you get there. But they're not going to run the table and win that. This needs to start tonight in Starkville. And it starts with Trey Johnson. Around him needs to be Jordan Pope, 10-plus points. Seriously, 10-plus points. Zach said he hasn't scored 12-plus since that OU game. That would be really nice to get on the road. Arthur Kaluma needs to do what he was doing in non-conference play, bodying guys down low, being able to guard positions 1 through 5. His shot selection's been fine all year. In fact, I'd like to see him shoot the ball more because he's probably Texas's second most gifted scorer behind Trey Johnson. And they're going to have to play some defense. That's going to be the toughest thing. Josh Hubbard is a little point guard. Texas struggles with that. Hopefully the size advantage will actually help Texas, but hasn't this year, especially not on the road. And they got to win. At all costs, they got to win.
I want to quickly go back to Zach's point on Rodney Terry because I completely agree with it. I mean, fellas, you know that I've been clamoring for Rodney Terry since the start, since that Elite Eight run. And I think Rodney Terry is a hell of a coach. You can say what you want about this year. You can say what you want about years past. He is a hell of a coach. No matter what happens, the man deserves his flowers. He had 2 of the best Texas basketball seasons in the last couple of decades. And that doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't matter who started the year as the coach. You don't reach an Elite Eight by accident, or you don't reach an Elite Eight by just standing there and clapping while, the guys play for you. That's not how basketball works. There's an element of coaching to this and an element of keeping a team together and an element of culture that I think Rodney Terry has done a really good job establishing. So regardless of what happens, for example, if Rodney Terry is not to be the Texas' head coach next year, then somebody somewhere is going to get a hell of a coach on their staff. They're going to get a hell of a recruiter, and they're going to get a guy that everybody's going to love. And you can continue to say whatever you want about him, but that's who Rodney Terry is. And I think Texas fans have always been too hard on him. And frankly, I think part of the issues that Texas is struggling with is out of his hands. I mean, we talked at length about this on this podcast about how if Texas wants to be serious about winning in basketball, they've got to find the money for it. This is one of the richest schools in the entire country. You see what they're doing in football, women's basketball, softball, baseball. They're investing money, they get the best players, and they win games. It is that simple. Texas has no shortage of money. There is no shortage of fan interest in basketball because you have seen what it looks like when Texas is at its best playing basketball. That place is packed, it is loud, and coaches and players rave about how hard it is to play in. That just hasn't been the case this year. They've got their bona fide superstar, but they had bona fide superstars in the past. They had Timmy Allen, you could argue Marcus Carr, but they all played well together, allowing them to shine. And that's what packs the joint out. Trey Johnson alone will get people in the stands, but if he's not getting any help and they're not winning any games, it's not going to change anything. So There's my rant. Give Rodney Terry his flowers. Trey Johnson's the dog. Thank you. Please win against Mississippi State.
Yeah, no. I love that we all have our own little perspective about the whole situation. I'm like excited to talk about it once the season's over. But Mississippi State, when I look at them and their schedule, they win, but outside of the 27-point loss to Missouri at the beginning of the conference play, they play how they're supposed to play. If they're supposed to win the game, they win the game. If they're supposed to lose, if they're an underdog, they're probably going to lose the game. That's just how it's looked on paper. So this is a game Mississippi State's supposed to win. Outside of Missouri, they haven't really broken this whole um, trend that they have. And Starkville is, I'd argue, a top 15 place to have as a home crowd. To go into that crowd, top 15 hardest places to play. It is loud. Tommy, you said there's cowbells. It is going to be a challenge. This is the last away game of the year for Texas. What did Clark Kellogg say, Jason? Got to win your home games. Or got to win your away games. You got to prove the away games. This is the last chance to do it. If Texas wants to make the tournament, because right now I see them as a next four out, or even or a last or first four out or a next four out. That they're kind of teetering those two lines right now. They have to. This is a. I mean, we say this every week, but it really is a must-win game at this point. Like it's March 3rd, guys. There's two games. We could have 3 games left of basketball with this team. As far as I'm concerned, winning 2 of the past 9 games might just see 3 games left of the season, which is a dark reality to admit. But I just haven't been given. I haven't been given the idea, especially since the I've been given the idea since the beginning of February that Texas is going to do something to put themselves on the map, to make their mark, to give them that Texas toughness. I guess it's a little cliche to say, but this is what you see in all sports. It's what you've seen in Texas the past 2 years with Ronnie Terry, and you just haven't seen it. And a big part of that is not being able to not being able to put the good pieces together. You can have the pieces of the puzzle, but if you don't put the time in to solve it, you're just going to end up throwing it away and everyone's going to forget about it. So that's how I see this. I mean, there's still time to solve this puzzle. It would be very Rodney Terry-esque to figure this out at the turn of the month, but I just don't have the belief right now. I hope I do today.
Yeah. Must win game doesn't even begin to describe this one. Like they need to win. They need to win. They're off the bubble if they don't. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you need to make a run in the SEC tournament. This isn't the year where it's going to be possible. Like we know one of those top 4 teams is going to win the SEC tournament. So Texas needs to win tonight against Mississippi State. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Based on what's happened the past couple of weeks, no. But I do think that it is, very Rodney Terry-esque to figure it out this late in the season. And I think starting the way that they figure that out tonight in Starkville